one of the biggest names of the sport could be on the trade block, and that is Nats slugger Juan Soto. Now, Soto is only 23 years old, and Soto's been absolutely phenomenal ever since he broke into this game a couple of years ago. Note that with Juan Soto, the Washington Nationals have won a World Series. He's gone to the All-Star game back-to-back years. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting in his first season, 2018. And in his first 5 seasons, and he started off this year slowly, but has now been incredible in the month of July. Over the course of his young career, he's hitting .293, which has been dropped down because of this year's batting average. But his high was in 2020, .351. He has 118 homers, 355 RBIs, a pair of All-Star appearances, 2 top 5 finishes in the MVP Rookie of the Year, the MVP voting, second in the Rookie of the Year voting, and a pair of Silver Sluggers. He's 23. He's just insane as a hitter, an absolute incredible gem of a young hitter. And because he's been so good so early in his career, there's always been talk of, when do you lock him up? How early do you have to lock him up? And what's it going to cost to do that? Now, Soto still has 2 years after this year on this deal with the Nationals. So there's no pressure today to have to deal him, or even by this trade deadline coming up at the end of the month. They've got 2 more seasons with him. But obviously the idea, the conventional wisdom is you trade away a guy that has as much as possible on the deal, because then the team that trades for him hypothetically gets 3 pennant races. And that's if they don't give him an extension. Now, the Nationals are in a bit of a tough spot here because they're the worst team in baseball. They've completely imploded since their World Series championship. And they have the worst record in baseball, and they've got a bad farm system. And that at this point, they've got to think about something drastic. They don't have a team surrounding Soto at the moment to contend, and they don't have a lot of young pieces that have future potential to come up through the pipeline and be able to support him. But I honestly think it's crazy to trade Juan Soto right now. I really do. I think it's crazy to trade him. Because number one, you've won a World Series with him. And to me, you know he can be the cornerstone of a championship contender. He can get it done in October. He's an impossible at-bat for any opposing pitcher. And he's not even entering his prime. I mean, he's 23 years old. You probably have Hall of Fame caliber Juan Soto still for 8 years. I mean, it's an insane amount of time that you have him playing at this level. And it might be longer, but let's just give him through 31 years old. You have 8 more years of Juan Soto. So to say that you can't build a winner around Juan Soto just because it's bad now, I think it's silly. Number two, you're in D.C. You're not a small market. You have the money if you want to find the money. There's huge cash in Washington, D.C. He's an incredibly marketable player, and you'd have him for 8 years. Why wouldn't you keep him at all costs? I mean, it's not like you're hemorrhaging money because you operate in a small market. Now, you're going to sell the franchise here. The Lerners are going to sell the Washington Nationals, and so there's 2 sides of this coin. One is you make sure you lock him up, or you at least don't trade him now so that the next buyer has Juan Soto. Of course, the value of your operation, you would imagine, goes up for a potential buyer, which could happen the next few months, probably by the end of this calendar year. you would say, well, the value of the Washington Nationals is higher because we have Juan Soto under contract, right? The other side of the coin is if you have to spend $500 million to have Juan Soto, does the new owner go, I don't really want a $500 million contract on my books. I would rather, start with a lesser payroll. And that's up to the buyer. Does the new buyer want Soto or not want that contract? Either way, that's why, to me, you don't trade Soto today, is because you can trade him at the winter meetings. You can trade him in the offseason. You would get just the same haul. The team that acquires him will still have him for a minimum of 2 years, even if they don't extend him 2 full seasons. So you would get the haul, I'm sure, which is a boatload of draft picks and maybe other positional players as well. A boatload of prospects, rather. But also, you allow the new owner the decision. The new owner gets to go, well, we have Juan Soto for 2 years, and we have 2 years to renegotiate with him, or we pull the trigger and trade him at the trade deadline, and then we reboot the whole thing anyway. So I just think trading him before this deadline is stupid, and I would also do everything in my power to lock him up, to sign him to an extension, to make sure he's there for a long time. Now, you look at these numbers and say, well, if Juan Soto says no to $440 million, DA, what makes you think that you'll be able to re-sign him? And it's true. The Nationals offered him 15 years at $440 million. But 15 years does not give him a very impressive per-year salary. Now, of course, for all of us making more than $20 million a year for the next 15 years, you'd sign up for right now, right? But Juan Soto doesn't have to do that. Soto taking that money means for the rest of his career, he will not be making anywhere close to the highest average annual salary in Major League Baseball. Right now, the highest annual salary is Max Scherzer, making more than $40 million over 3 seasons with the Mets. Now, if you're going to sign Soto to a 10-year deal, let's say, that still, if you gave him $40 million a year, now you're talking about the same deal that you just offered. Scott Boras and Soto's camp is not going to take a 15-year deal at $440. They might do 10 for $440, but they ain't going to do 15 because 15 years means that his annual salary ranks only 20th all time. I mean, why would Juan Soto sign that? This is a bogus offer. Yeah, it would lock him up for 15 years. That's good for the Nationals. And yes, the overall money in it is a lot of money, $440 million, but he'd only be making $29 million a year for the rest of his career. That sounds like a lot. It's not in baseball world. And, all right, look, Scott Boras is going to play hardball, and Scott Boras is going to squeeze every last dime out of you, and maybe the Nationals know there's no way we're going to get to the number that they want, that the Yankees or the Dodgers or maybe the Mets, those would be the teams that would get to the number that Juan Soto would need. But a rival executive told the New York Post, this offer is a bad deal for Soto. It's backloaded, so it's not even worth $29 million a year. It's more like $27 million a year. Quote, it's a typical Nats deal. If I were him, I would not do this deal either. And that, to me, is the problem here. If the Nationals are going to go, look, we got to make a decision, and it might be now, it might be later, and then maybe they're just kind of cooking up some interest in him to see what they could then expect down the stretch next year, offseason, what have you, fine. But it's somewhat insulting to give Juan Soto, even though it's a big total dollar amount, $27 million a year at 23 years old. I mean, he's only going to get better. It's a lot of money, but not spread over that much time. And so the Nats made an offer that makes it look like they went all the way, and they actually really didn't. Give him $440 over 10 years and let him say no to that. And if he says no to that, okay, then you can honestly say, look, we would give him More money than anybody else would average per season, and they want even more than that. That's about our extent. Don't give him $27 million a year. Of course he's going to say no to that.